Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again, barefaced lies. Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You wouldn't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. You would never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Hey Sean, you got a party, got that little party going on there. Keep to the left, you can't think right, so everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You wouldn't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. You would never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You wouldn't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. You would never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Comrades, you always told us.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011, he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Very, very good evening. Sunday the 12th of April 2026. My name is Raja Miah. It's a Recusant 9 transmission. My sincerest apologies for the link earlier. It was at 2 in the morning or something. That wasn't me. I think it's just the my computer clock still messing around from when I was away. So that is where we're at. We'll give it a few minutes and hopefully let a few people join us and catch up with the link. So if you don't mind, just bear with me a couple of minutes whilst some of our regulars do pop across. Hi Jenny. Hi Jackie, and of course Sheila. How you doing? There's a lot that's took place in the 2 weeks or so we've not broadcast. I have tried to keep people up to date with what's going on via Redwall and the Rabble. I spent considerable time writing articles and sending them out. They're interesting, really. I think in the end, whilst we do write and it is of value, I think a lot of people prefer these video sort of transactions. So let's see. Indeed, barefaced lies. Good evening, Tommy. Yeah, we'll just give it a few minutes, let a few people catch up with us. I know there was a lot more than the 96 I'm looking at who were here before I messed it up. So I'll sip a bit of Vimto and we'll wait a minute or two. Gary's been out campaigning, hasn't you, Gary? You've been out knocking on doors and getting people to vote for you. I saw Gary's picture on the local Reform Facebook page, and it was it's Gary Tarbuck with his distinguished beard and a row of medals. It was it's a long row of medals. Bet Jim Bob will be watching. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So to start the evening off, I think has got to be the extremely sad news that I heard whilst I was away, that my dear friend David Nestor passed away. He had a very short battle with cancer. He found out very late, and my last interaction with him, I think, was on here, where he spoke and shared. I went on his Facebook page, and his last post was sharing my content. And my last conversation with him was about politics and football. So I am, like so many of you who knew him, heartbroken. My eternal memory of David would be at the general election count, where I took a battering, and he'd turned up and gave me a pep talk about how I needed to dust myself off, get off the ground and go again, and this was bigger than me. And it was one of the reasons why I carried on. Another of the reasons was at the funeral of George Hayward, Julie's dad, where her niece, Julie's niece, told me that George would have been disappointed if I'd stopped. So I am losing people, and these people who I'm losing, I don't mean it disrespectfully to any of you. They mean so much to me. They all mean a lot to me, but these people in particular mean so much to me, because when I first spoke out and we came under so much pressure with people trying to stamp us out, as you can imagine, the likes of George Hayward, David Nestor, decent people, came forward and stood by me. So it hurts. It genuinely hurts. And the last conversation I had with him at the time, when we talked about politics and Oldham Athletic, whether they'd make the playoffs or not, and my political exchange with him was, and I saw this come up, and I try not to take sides, but he talked about Rupert Lowe and how Rupert Lowe had given him hope. And I know Gary, a couple of weeks earlier, he'd even volunteered, hadn't he, to be a paper candidate for reform in one of the areas where we knew we wouldn't win, but we wanted to have candidates across all 20 wards of our town. So he's a loss, and his wife June, she's lovely. I really feel for her. Okay, hopefully there'll be a funeral and we'll be able to attend. Moving on, I promised Fiona Godard that I would do everything possible to try and get people to her event on Thursday in Oldham. She is, and I've looked at it, she's probably at least 20 people short of it being a decent turnout. Now, we all know Oldham is the first of the towns in the National Inquiry, and the National Inquiry is being launched tomorrow. We know this National Inquiry would not be what it is, and it's a far, far distance from what it needs to be. But one of the reasons we have a fighting chance with this national inquiry is because Fiona Godard spoke out against Jess Phillips, spoke out against what they were trying to do with the inquiry, which was rig it, and endured so much. And it would be a travesty if she was to be speaking to an empty room. She's messaged me and said, you can have the tickets for free if you want, Raja, and I don't think that's the case. Something like £10 or something, so I don't think that's the case. We don't need it for free, we need to turn up. I would ordinarily have my daughter on the first evening. I've made arrangements for her. We need to go. If you're in my town or anywhere near my town, if you're in Rochdale, Bury, Bolton, Tameside, Manchester, we really need to turn up and support this brave, brave young woman. So please, take the 5 minutes, buy yourself a ticket, and I will see you there. I'm in the audience the same as you, and I will see you there. And I get it's too far for some of you, and it's fine. I get that, Chloe. You know, we've got a national audience, and maybe she'll do an event closer to you, but she's coming to our town. Oldham is the first of the towns in the national inquiry. And I think it would be a travesty if it was a poor turnout. It's at a reasonable time. I think it's something like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock on the Thursday. It'd be finished by 8. So, okay. Moving on, the next thing I just wanted to quickly mention is the crowdfunder I have up. It's something I'm doing reluctantly, and I think you need to understand the seriousness of it. There are 2 costs associated with this, and I'm trying to get insurance for the second one. The first one is to actually manage to take it to court itself, and I've spoken with my legal team. We need a specialist defamation barrister. It costs a fortune. We need the filing fee, the High Court. The fee just to file is £10,000, and the cases can go into the £100,000 plus easily. And if we lose, I'll be liable for the cost on the other side. I'm trying to get insurance to try and mitigate some of that, but it's a minefield. And what I've learned in the time I've looked at this is that it's not set out. The legal system is not set out for ordinary people such as ourselves to be able to stand up for ourselves. But we have to stand up for ourselves. I am very clear on my position. There is absolutely nowhere, anywhere, where I've covered up child abuse. There is no serious case review, there is no safeguarding report, nothing like that. There is nowhere, anywhere, where I've channeled millions of pounds to somehow benefit myself, when here I am every week working like this and asking you people to sign up for £3 a week, £3 a month, sorry. So, no, and I'm afraid it doesn't work like that. It's a specialist field, Chloe. There's specialist types of lawyers, and of course Jim McMahon probably has deeper pockets than me. Well, he has deeper pockets than me, but I'm not sure if it's his pockets or so. He's getting the funding from elsewhere, but he's gone and hired a very, very expensive law firm in London. We'll see where we go. But in terms of where we're up to, and I'll just bring it up so I can see it myself. The target was £50,000 in total, and that'll take us to the end of that first phase, really. And then we'll know. At that point, we'll know, I think, and you'll all know where we're up to. And we're up to 33,197. Now, we'll have to get a bit more than the target because what they're called, crowdfunder, will take their percentage out of the total. So let's see where we end up. I'm overwhelmed by it, if I'm honest with you. I set an initial target of 20,000, thinking I'd remortgage my house for the rest, and we're at 33,100, so we're 2/3 of the way there. It doesn't work like that, mate. You know, those people, they fund the famous people and stuff like that. Ordinary people like me they're not going to support me and fund this, I'm afraid, Trevor. I wish, but they're not, mate. It never happens. And when I look at the breakdown of my 33,197, the vast majority of donations are from ordinary people who've given £5, £10, £25. There's one or two, 100, one at 250, I think, but the vast majority are 5, 10, 15, £20 sort of contributions. This campaign that I've been on and this work that I do has almost exclusively been supported by ordinary people. Go and have a look on X, go and have a look on Facebook, and you'll see the great and the good not only haven't funded me, they've not even supported me, liked, shared, any of that. It's just ordinary people like you who have been standing alongside me, and whatever happens at the end of this, I'll be forever grateful for that. So I will keep you updated. I've got a call with a really, really good barrister, really and a rude sharp thing, isn't it? But a very, an exceptional barrister who I've worked with in the past, so he specialises in this. So I've got a call with his clerk scheduled for tomorrow, and we'll get the ball rolling. And we've got enough to get the initial work done and get the fee paid to file. And the funny thing, really, it's funny I suppose, is up to this point it's just been me trying my best to hold firm with this law firm, because there's something else. Their plan is to get it struck out, which is to prevent it going to trial. So that's where we are up to with that. Right, let's get on with this evening's transmission. I want to play something. Happened whilst I was gone. Double check for camera. That means flick this round and maybe it'll work. Yep. He's trying to find, where's it gone? Just give me a second, let me find it. Yeah, let's play this. It's not letting me play it. Why is it doing that? I've never had that before. Let's try a different way and see if we can get anywhere. Well, now we've got loads of adverts because I'm not logged in. Just give me a second.
I thought this viral pressure nozzle was another cleaning scam. 3 months later, I haven't touched my $400 pressure washer once. They're called Aquoxis, and they're nothing like those weak spray nozzles you've tried before. This thing multiplies your garden hose pressure by...
Just not well.
Your blood is going to boil watching this. A bombshell exclusive by the Daily Express has revealed a vile Pakistani rape gang secret that contains allegations about the Prime Minister Keir Starmer's role in the treatment and prosecution of innocent victims. Well, CPS lawyers working directly under Starmer have been accused of portraying a Rochdale victim known by her alias as Amber disgustingly as a pedophile and a teenage pimp procuring children for the gang. This vulnerable girl faced death threats and attempts to take her own child into care after being branded a paedophile in court by the Crown Prosecution Service. The claim is that the CPS did this for so-called tactical reasons, but they apparently didn't even tell Amber or let her defend herself. Can you believe it? Well, time and time again, Sir Keir Starmer boasts that he personally asked for the Rochdale Pakistani rape gang file and even boasts about how he oversaw the 2011 rape gang prosecution.
When I was Chief Prosecutor, I took measures to confront this head-on. The first of the mass prosecutions for an Asian gang was in Rochdale. My team came to see me. It put a number of Asian men in the dock. They wanted the green light for the first of these cases to take place. I gave that green light, but on one condition, because it came to my attention that one of the men that was going into the dock had previously been arrested but not charged. And I said, you can bring the first of these mass prosecutions, but only if you look back at the file where we weren't charged and tell me what went wrong with a report so that I can start to put it right. And that's what started the reforms I brought about. So that's the approach I took in practice, whilst others were tweeting and talking. It's the approach I would take now in any case where there's wrongdoing here. But what we've got to do now, Professor Jay has said this, we have had a number of strong findings. There are 20 on the table from Professor Jay. We've got to get on with action. Don't block it this afternoon.
Well, it begs the question, doesn't it? If this was the approach Keir Starmer takes credit for, did he also give the go-ahead for the CPS to allegedly smear that poor, innocent young woman as a paedophile? Perhaps it just didn't cross his desk. Well, whistleblower Maggie Oliver told The Express that they didn't arrest Amber. They never even cautioned her. She didn't even know that she was being portrayed in that trial as an older madame who was procuring children for the gang, and it was a complete lie. Unfortunately, it doesn't end there. There's another victim, Ruby, raped repeatedly from the age of 12 by a Pakistani rape gang. She was impregnated at 13 years old by a Pakistani rape gang member, Adil Khan. Police allegedly took her aborted fetus for DNA evidence without her consent. Yet despite that seemingly concrete proof, Starmer's CPS only charged Khan with conspiracy to commit sexual activity with a child, not rape. He served just 3 years. Without a doubt, this National Grooming Gang inquiry must evaluate what role Keir Starmer, the now Prime Minister, played in this scandal and his part in this vile, horrific treatment of innocent young victims. And if you ask me, anything less than that will certainly be a cover-up for Keir. Well, joining me in the studio is investigative journalist himself, the man who's done all this work. The credit goes to him, Zak Garner-Purkis, joining me now, alongside my panel, of course, here, which we'll talk to in just a minute. But I want to start with you, Zak. This is another shocking allegation, Zak, about Keir Starmer's role in the CPS. Last time I had you here in the studio, we were talking about these pedo-asbo things that were put out by the CPS that Keir Starmer put his name to on a report. Now, he's, as we saw in that clip in Parliament, boasted about his role in prosecutions here. Tell us, first of all, how you found this information, how you did this investigation.
OK, so the starting point that everyone's probably aware of, well, everyone's aware of it because Keir Starmer always goes on about it, is he was at the CPS when these first prosecutions were taking place. When we were doing the paedophile Asbo story, I was interviewing Maggie Oliver, and she mentioned, as part of our discussions in terms of what the missteps by the CPS, the story of Ruby and the horrific story about the aborted fetus being taken, right? So what I started to do was, as a matter of due diligence, I just went through all of Starmer's statements that he'd made about Rochdale, and that's where we got this thing of, I took the file, I did this, I did that, and he's like, oh, okay, so he's taken quite a lot of personal responsibility for that. And then I went back to Maggie, and I said, all right, Maggie, you say this was, you know, a disaster for the CPS, and she took me through it. And the crazy thing about this is, those quotes that we've got there about what they did to Amber, those aren't what I've come up with. They're not what Maggie's come up with. Those are what Andy Burnham's commissioned independent review, that's what they said. They described what they did to Amber. These are the independent reviewers, right? No party political, no one that's got an axe to grind with Keir Starmer, as deplorable further abuse. In other words, the CPS abused one of the grooming gang victims further by by that horrific betrayal that took place. And essentially, you know, the investigation was just put it together. It was all there. He's boasted about it. I struggle to, you know, you feel like you're going crazy because he's telling you one thing, oh, it was a success. It wasn't. You know, the drama, 3 Girls, right, BBC drama, a lot of people had a massive impact, right? Watch that again and keep in your mind that everything that happens to Amber in that story is Keir Starmer. He's taking responsibility for it.
It's really shocking stuff. This man is the Prime Minister of the country. As you said, he constantly talks about his role being the sort of the bastion of good when it comes to these Pakistani grooming gang cases up and down the country. We've got a national grooming gangs inquiry coming up, Zach. What role should that play in looking at the Prime Minister?
It should look at the Prime Minister, but number one, is he not compromised? That was the question that, you know, if you watch the video that we put out on YouTube this morning, my last question to Maggie was, is he compromised? And she was absolutely. You know, he stood up there and he's spoken about this. And then Shabana Mahmood, guess what? Who's her boss? It's Keir Starmer, right? So if and it's very strange timing, isn't it? That, you know, just before this story drops, when we go to them for a right of reply, that it gets announced that they're going to do the inquiry and all the rest of it. We'll tell you what, if that inquiry is going to look properly independent, have a look at Keir Starmer. And you know what, Keir, if you can show what your role is, you release the documents. Release them. You know, we talk about, like, you know, the disclosure Epstein files. Release Starmer's grooming gang files.
Yeah, certainly agreed. Are you concerned in the current state that the grooming gangs national inquiry set up as, that there's going to be a cover-up or a whitewash?
I mean, I think, look at what happened last time. Is anyone happy with what happened with the last inquiry? No. You just... Look, there are survivors and victims that want to put trust in this process, so you don't want to just trash everything, like, not saying that it could happen, but you just... I struggle to see how it will be able to do it, especially when you just have these conflicts of interests across the board. And it starts with the person at the very top.
It certainly does. Zach, thank you. Let's bring in the rest of my panel here. Peter Blexlock.
That's the bit I wanted to play. My apologies. Sheila's laughing at me about my IT skills. Honestly, Sheila, it was working before on YouTube, so I'm not sure what's happened there and why the video wouldn't play. But we got it there. Zach's a good lad. He's worked really hard, and he's very clear. All the evidence is there. You just have to look and join the dots up, and that's what we've been doing for the last 7 to 8 years now. All the evidence is there, and essentially Keir Starmer has been taking credit repeatedly. Well, if he's taken the credit of what happened in Rochdale in the prosecution, then he, whilst he was in charge of the CPS, is also responsible for at least these 2 elements, and he has questions to answer. If he's not responding, ultimately he's responsible. He was in charge of the CPS. He's the Director of Public Prosecutions. The case of Ruby and the aborted fetus, what had happened is one of the men who'd gang raped her, she was being gang raped every night. One of the men who'd gang raped her got her pregnant. His DNA was found. A decision was taken not to charge him with rape. Just join that up for you. Just join that up. She's 13 years old. She's gang raped. The police, the CPS want evidence. The evidence is that her aborted fetus, the DNA match from the sperm was with this man, and Starmer's CPS took the decision not to charge him with rape. Help me make sense of that. The other one is to do with Amber, and they're made out to be a pimp. Now we know how these girls were treated, how they were blackmailed, how they were threatened, and how they were put in the most impossible position to assist and supply other girls. And all this time, they never even told her that in the court cases they were portraying her as a pimp. Someone in the CPS, apparently it was a strategic decision, someone in the CPS would have made that decision. Now this is my issue on the National Inquiry, one of my many issues on the National Inquiry, and you can see by the way Zak spoke, because he spent some time looking into this, his deep dive into it. He's spoken to the likes of Maggie Oliver and some of the survivors. You know, he knows that this is going to be a whitewash and a cover-up, and it can't be trusted. He knows. And he's angry with it. I mean, that's his face. Just look at his face. Whilst I was away, another story made the news, and it made me cry, because I know this story. I know this story well, and I'll bring it up if I can. And it's regarding this. There's a grooming gang victim smuggled into Parliament by abusers and presented to a senior politician for sex. The woman claimed she was taken to party conferences and trafficked to hundreds of men as a teenager, including police officers. Amelia is the name she goes by. I know her. Says she was sexually exploited in Oldham during the town's grooming gang crisis and was transported to Westminster by one of her abusers between 2001 and 2002. The man told me to tell people I was his niece, so I just walked right in with him. There was no security or anything. Now, if you've been into Parliament, you know that's not how it's meant to operate. So whoever the man was clearly connected in the first place. She said she was introduced to a prominent political figure whose name she recalls but did not recognise at the time. It was clear to me that I was being taken to meet someone to see if they liked me and wanted sexual services from me, she said. Amelia alleges she was later sent to upmarket Manchester hotels during what she now recognises as party conferences, where she was forced to provide sexual services to multiple men. She further claims she was trafficked to hundreds of men as a teenager, including police officers. At the age of 16, she alleges she was taken to a Manchester hotel where she had sex with a Greater Manchester police officer who showed her his identification badge. She also claims the same officer later collected her from her mother's home and drove her to a local beauty spot where they had sex in his vehicle. Now, we know about police officers in Rotherham who were raping the girls who were being abused. We know that. Now, in a separate incident, Amelia alleges that at 17 she was found intoxicated and injured by another uniformed officer, who then took her into a police station and had sex with her in an interview room. My abusers knew where my family lived and would ring them if I didn't turn up. I felt they were under threat, she said. GMP, that's Greater Manchester Police, has acknowledged failings in handling of Amelia's case. So what were the failings? The conduct of two officers was unacceptable, and both required improvement. That basically means they got away with it. GMP also admitted it failed to record her complaint, that her case was being covered up because it involved high-profile politicians and policemen. Let me read that again. The police, that's Andy Burnham's Greater Manchester Police now, have admitted that it failed to record the complaint of a child sexual abuse survivor because she had been raped by high-profile politicians and policemen. Apparently the omission was not acceptable. But it's okay. We've learnt lessons. Procedures have since been amended. No. GMP acknowledged the failings that have been noted in this report and apologise. But apparently, how officers handled their allegation of sexual abuse by police were not upheld when the force concluding an acceptable service had been provided. Now here we have the MP, Jimmy McMahon. And of course Amelia declined. The police claim, she declined to identify her abusers, but she didn't. She did. She disputes that. She named the perpetrators and accompanied officers to locations where the abuse took place. I've met the lady. I believe her. I've looked in her eyes. I've spoken to her at length. Many years ago, by the way, this. She's been fighting to have this released for at least 3 years that I know of. This is where it gets even more sinister, if it could. When I spoke with Amelia, she told me that Jim McMahon was helping her. She's a survivor. I shrugged my shoulders and I said, I hope you get the support you need from him. I'm not going to play out my issues with someone else through survivors. And this is the actual newspaper article. It's a GB News article, but it's in the Sun. Amelia reported her allegations to a local MP, Jim McMahon, in 2023. So that's about the time her and I first met. Who, in addition to representations made to the police and social services, contacted Parliamentary Security. They then referred her case to the Parliamentary Liaison and Investigation Team. A House of Commons spokesman said, "We recognise the frustrations expressed by the individual and the seriousness of the allegation. When concerns such as these are raised, the House administration is required to direct to the relevant external body in accordance with Parliament's safeguarding policy. This is because the House of Commons has no statutory role in the investigation of historic safeguarding concerns. What they did, and what GB News doesn't run with, but then has been reported since, is that the wrong parliamentary body looked into it. The one that looked into it was the one that's set up to protect politicians. Not investigate politicians, but to protect politicians. Now, if I was your MP, Amelia, I would have issued a statement by now, outraged. If I was your MP, I would have told you as soon as you spoke to me that the investigation team, the parliamentary liaison and investigation team, was the wrong body to investigate this. And now your story has made it out. I would be screaming relentlessly and writing to Andy Burnham, the Police and Crime Commissioner, demanding an investigation into Greater Manchester Police, because she's alleging that police officers raped her. She's alleging that a police officer took her back to a police station and had sex with her in an interview room. She was 16. She's alleging that she's been pimped. Let me find a Sun article, because I know it goes into more detail. Oh, Julie, you've made it here. A protester against grooming gangs in Oldham. It's my friend Julie Hayward. Oh, Gail's there as well. Oh, she was age 17, sorry, when a police officer did what she did. Maggie Oliver's been supporting her. That's Matt Mann, but this is the bit I want to get to. Shockingly, Amelia's case was then mistakenly referred to the Parliamentary Liaison and Investigation Team, a police squad which protects MPs and investigates crimes against them. Why did Jim McMahon not intervene at that point? The only reason it was referred to that body within Parliament was after McMahon contacted Parliamentary Security Department. So why was it referred to them, and why did McMahon not speak out? Are you trying to tell me a 10-year MP or something isn't aware what the function of that investigation team is? A police squad which protects MPs and investigates crimes against them. Amelia apparently received an apology saying it was a mistake, and her allegations were then reported to Parliament's safeguarding lead, who simply told her to report it to the police. When Amelia tried to obtain her social care records from being a teen, Oldham Council told her they had been destroyed. In response, the council said it had previously apologised to survivors for the serious failures that occurred in the past. How convenient. Her social care records have been destroyed. What is this sounding like to you? Ordinary people. What is this now sounding like? Maggie Oliver says it has been a battle from start to finish, with successive organisations making the fight for justice an impossible battle that has consumed Amelia's whole life. And that is just wrong. Amelia, of course, no one should be surprised, is also struggling to obtain her sexual health records, which could form key evidence in her case. Amelia, who has been fighting for an inquiry into grooming gangs in Oldham for years, also shared her story with Labour former Minister Jess Phillips, and also Tory leader Kemi Badenoch and Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp, but feels little has been done to help progress her case. The GMP investigation remains ongoing. And of course, McMahon is saying, she's a brave survivor and such and such. Oh, pity us, feel sorry for her. I don't think Amelia wants anyone to feel sorry for her. Do you? I think Amelia wants people investigated, arrested, and prosecuted. The police have admitted they refused to investigate because of who she was making allegations against. Well, who in the police refused to investigate? It wasn't some invisible, generic blob with a computer saying, we refuse to investigate. There would have been named police officers. They now need to be arrested and prosecuted. And it is the duty of the Police and Crime Commissioner, Andy Burnham, to speak out on this. It is the duty of Jim McMahon not just to feel sorry for one of his constituents, but to stand up in Parliament, as you see every week, MPs stand up in Parliament, and bring to the attention of every MP in there exactly what has happened to Amelia and how she was taken to the Houses of Parliament to be pimped. I know Amelia, I don't always get on with her, I know her. And what I will say to you now on record, so you can all see me acknowledging this, is that I am 100% certain that the national inquiry we forced collectively in this town would not have been possible without Amelia's courage. I witnessed that firsthand. And the nation not only owes her a debt, it owes her justice. Why is Andy Burnham quiet? Why is McMahon not doing more? Where is Jess Phillips, the Minister for Safeguarding Girls? I'll tell you what I think has gone on here. Amelia's case crosses a line because I am certain if a child, that's what a 16-year-old is to me, if a child such as Amelia is pimped into Parliament and then taken to party conferences to have sex with senior political figures. This is Epstein-style child trafficking to powerful people, and Amelia would not be the only one. Amelia said, "I have lost any shred of trust I had in Greater Manchester Police, politicians, or any of the authorities." I'd argue Zak, the Sunday Express journalist, is probably feeling the same. For those of you new to me, my name is Raja Miah. I am responsible for the Recusant 9 platform. Nearly 8 years now we've been campaigning for a national inquiry, and now our campaign is to try and hold to account the inquiry that we helped force. I make no excuses, no apologies. I am a political campaigner, and I am the way I am because, unlike Amelia, when I started this journey, I did not have any shred of trust in Greater Manchester Police, politicians, or any of the authorities. I knew very quickly on that the complicity was only able to have took place with multiple agencies, multiple powerful individuals, all working together. And that's why we are where we are. I'll just stop to say hello to and thank you. I've seen a few super chats come in, so thank you to those of you who have. Thank you, Jenny, for the £20. Denise, thank you so much. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Owen. I can't pronounce that. Lardy. Sorry, my apologies on that. Is it a short for something? Thank you. I think it's remarkable she's managed to continue the way she has, Denise. I think it's extremely remarkable. Now, moving on. The grooming gang inquiry commences tomorrow. It formally begins. Statutory, backed by law, with the power to compel witnesses and seize documents. Maybe they can seize Amelia's files. We are being told that this is a moment of accountability. I don't believe it. The detail, and I'm one for details, is where the betrayal lives. Firstly, Baroness Anne Longfield. Labour Party Baroness, remember. She chairs it. She's also the former Children's Commissioner for England. £65 million. 3 years to report. It's been relatively quiet, hasn't she? We now know, and I think Zak missed it a little bit, but when they focused on the Prime Minister. The inquiry really needs to also cover specific government departments. It doesn't, I've not seen it, there's not a specific strand for the Crown Prosecution Service. This is the body that decided who they would prosecute, who they would ignore, how they would treat the survivors. Survivor after survivor has come out and shared how they were failed by the Crown Prosecution Service. The Crown Prosecution Service is not a specific strand in the grooming gang inquiry. Why? Same with the Home Office. It sits outside the scope. How can the Home Office, that was responsible for the reports that lied to us, how can the Home Office sit outside the scope? The political decisions made in Westminster by the people now commissioning it will not be examined. How convenient. Somebody drew those boundaries and decided that the government departments, they are government departments essentially, and the CPS, you understand, the Home Office, these departments most implicated in the institutional failure would sit outside the scope of the inquiry examining that failure. Longfield could have resigned, could have said no, it needs to be included. No, she accepted those terms without any visible resistance whatsoever. She has not said publicly that an inquiry without the CPS in its scope cannot tell the full truth. She didn't say that. I am telling you that. An inquiry without the CPS in its scope, a designated strand, investigating the actions of the CPS, not just the towns where it happened, or the cities where it happened, not just the police, but without investigating the CPS, without investigating the Home Office. Of course, I have maintained from the outset that she's the wrong chair. This isn't a new position for me. And I've gone into specific detail about this. She spent, forget the Labour Party Baroness bit and the conflict of interest there, and how she supported one of the Labour Party ministers to become potential leader only months ago. That's how invested she was in the Labour Party. She was campaigning on behalf of, what's the education minister called? Bridget something or another? Put that to one side, as difficult as it is, put that to one side. Longfield spent 9 years as Children's Commissioner, 2015 to 2021. The office has statutory authority in a public platform with one single purpose: promoting and protecting the rights of children. During those 9 years, ICSA was running, taking evidence and producing interim reports. Chair after chair was quitting because they had been exposed for a conflict of interest. You know, they tried to sneak in chairs, and then people said, hold on, aren't you linked to this, aren't you linked to that, and they had to step down. That's it, Bridget Phillipson, thank you. Sian, thank you. Go and check. ICSA's running. The scale of organised exploitation across England and Wales in real time. Ignoring the rape gangs, remember? Ignoring this specific crime. The Telford inquiry, non-statutory, remember? Judge-led, but it didn't have statutory powers. Gathering evidence during that same period, condemning series of findings. 350, I think, identified victims. Patterns of institutional failure directly comparable to Rotherham and Rochdale. The Casey review findings on Rotherham were already in the public domain. The pattern was well documented. Networks of Pakistani men operate. The institutional decisions repeated across multiple towns to look away. Longfield had the statutory office led. The statutory office responsible for children's right through all of it. There is no record of her using the full weight of that office to confront what was happening. Why? We now know, they've said it in Parliament, the industrial scale gang rape and trafficking of working class white girls across the country, the industrial scale. And the Children's Commissioner either did not take the time to understand what was taking place, or looked at it and thought, no, it does not align with our priorities. If anything, the Children's Commissioner herself should be investigated as part of a national inquiry into the grooming gangs. She shouldn't be in charge of it. She should be investigated because the finding will be that the Children's Commissioner's office failed in its remit. There's no public statements from her naming the ethnicity dimension, the religious dimensions. There's none of that. There's nothing from her, the Children's Commissioner's office, saying there's an issue here. Working class white girls are being picked up, targeted in a systematic way. The reports in Rotherham, Rochdale, Telford, so on. Longfield held both the platform and the authority to act, and used neither with the force the situation required. Now she chairs the inquiry that is supposed to deliver what her own office failed to deliver. Well, am I being unfair? Hundreds of you wrote to your MPs at my request. Some wrote back saying yes, they'll push it. Some, talked around it. Some just ignored you. I'm telling you again. The power to compel witnesses is worthless if it is not directed at the people who made the decisions that mattered. Senior police officers, council leaders, Home Office officials, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer whilst he was Director of Public Prosecutions, the people who were in the room. If procedural delays and restricted terms of reference keep those people from live cross-examination, statutory compulsion becomes nothing more than a decoration. The J report, ICSA, every local authority review, named institutions. You fucking cowards. You don't prosecute institutions. An institution cannot be imprisoned. The failings do not land anywhere specific. You've seen it just now. With the Amelia case, lessons have been learned. If this inquiry produces a report that criticises culture and structures without attaching specific conduct to specific named people, it will have spent £65 million to repeat what we already know in slightly more authoritative language. The path to criminal accountability needs to be direct. Misconduct in public office referrals where the evidence warrants them. Formal criminal referrals that cannot be quietly set aside without either. The inquiry concludes, the report lands, and the politicians issue carefully worded statements. Absolutely nothing changes. This cycle has run before, and this is the cycle that they will try to run again. Three years. Why 3 years? It was intentionally before the next general election, but now we know it's not. And I don't think actually 3 years is long enough. They don't have to, they can do it phased. But they've done it the way they've done it. It's because it's long enough for witnesses to retire before they are called. Long enough for the moment to pass. The Chilcot inquiry took 7 years. The infected blood inquiry took 6. By the time those findings were published, most of the political actors most responsible had left office. Several had even died. The consequences were theoretical, but here we know they won't be. But they won't ask the people who are incriminated the most. I will tomorrow go through what a fit-for-purpose national inquiry should look like. I'm very clear on one, and by the time I finish with it, so will you. But this is theatre, my friends. A timeline structured so that the findings arrive after political accountability has expired. That's not designed for justice. And as I've told you time and time again, and it's great. I look at the likes of Zak, GB News, all of them. They're all there now, aren't they? Whitewash, cover up. All this time beforehand, Raja, you're a cynic, Raja, you're just doing this on purpose. Well, the evidence is the evidence. The cover-up happens at the drafting stage. Yes, great. She's now committed to examining the role of ethnicity, culture and religion in how these networks operated and how institutions responded. The evidence isn't ambiguous. Networks of predominantly Pakistani men targeted predominantly white working class girls. Why? Officers and officials knew. They refused to prosecute them. Why? Reports were filed and the children were deemed to be making lifestyle decisions. Why? The institutional response across multiple towns over multiple decades was to minimise and in many cases actively suppress the systematic industrial scale gang rape of children. Why? Far-right conspiracy theorists, I'll have you know, Denise. The reason is consistent across every review. Officers feared being labelled racist. Some of them held, many of them held, the victims in complete contempt because they were white and working class. Local politicians depended on block votes from the community under examination and knew that the community whose children were being gang raped didn't bother voting anyway. The victims were working class, poor. Many of them were in care. They were easy to dismiss. And the institutions knew it. Individuals knew it. Those conditions produced institutional silence across the country. If this inquiry's conclusions reflect the evidence plainly, it will have done something no prior process will have managed, and it'll have done something I've just shared with you again and again and again in minutes. But it won't. It won't say children were sold for votes. It won't even go looking for the evidence of children being sold for votes. Thank you. Agreed. Starmer commissioned an inquiry. He announced it. He's Director of Public Prosecutions. You've seen it, 2008 to 2013. He ran the CPS during the period when charging decisions were being made about organised sexual exploitation in Rochdale. The Rochdale ring was prosecuted during his tenure. He took the credit. The CPS dropped the initial investigation in 2008, the year he took the role. It was only reopened after sustained external pressure. He takes the credit. Adil Khan, that's the guy's name, who was the DNA on the aborted fetus, was convicted in 2012. The charges against him were downgraded during prosecution despite DNA evidence. The decision was made within the institution Starmer led. He has never been asked to account for it under oath. He is the Prime Minister. He commissioned this inquiry. The terms of reference exclude the Crown Prosecution Service he led from examination. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary. She's from the very community that the perpetrators are from. She was responsible at the top of the drafting of the draft terms of reference that in the first instance attempted to exclude ethnicity, religion and culture. Do you really believe it's now going to be investigated? Starmer, Mahmood, Jess Phillips, some of the most leading politicians in this country who should be compelled to give evidence, are involved in commissioning the process. £65 million inquiry chaired by a woman who spent 9 years in the office best placed to challenge this failure and left that role with no record of having done so. Commissioned by the Director of Public Prosecutions, who ran the institution, this inquiry will not examine, within terms drawn by the government, most implicated in what happened. Longfield has the power to compel the right witnesses and produce conclusions that reflect what the evidence shows. And I'll show you tomorrow what a fit-for-purpose national inquiry would and should look like. But based on what I've seen so far, everything she has been, everything she has said since, everything I've read on this national inquiry, like Zak from the Daily Express, I'm not holding my breath. This is designed to be not a whitewash, but a cover-up. Because they can't whitewash this. No matter how many layers of paint you put on this, you won't be able to clean this. So they'll cover it up. And they'll cover it up by going and looking in all the places that don't need looking and asking questions of all the people who are the least you should be asking questions of. And apparently they are coming to Oldham first. No one knows where else they're going, but apparently they're coming to Oldham first. Thank you so much. Thank you. Separate to the crowdfunder, which is doing amazingly well. Thank you so much to all of you who have supported the crowdfunder. It's genuinely left me overwhelmed. We're at 33,527, so we're 2/3 of the way there. We're comfortably 2/3 of the way there. Redwall and the Rabble is where I do all my work. The subscription figures are not the best. at the moment. Hopefully they'll improve as we refocus our efforts on not just holding to task those involved in the national inquiry, but also the May local elections that are coming, and trying to make sure that the parties who are being elected and politicians who are being elected have this at the forefront of their campaigns. My hope is that we've always campaigned from the outside. I don't think that matters. We made it. We outmaneuvered everyone we needed to in Oldham to expose what happened here, and I think we'll do the same here with the national inquiry. It's very, very clear that whilst still blacklisting me from appearing on their pages or in TV shows and so on, a lot of the thinking and the analysis I do is what then informs and shapes what is repeated, echoed. I'm happy for it to be politicians, policymakers, or even journalists, as long as we amplify it. And that's where you come in. You need to keep sharing, you need to keep liking, you need to keep commenting. And we'll get there together. And I'm clear where there is, so there's no ambiguity. We expose this as a cover-up, as a sham. And we force whoever wants to become the next government to put something in place that's fit for purpose, that includes rape gang trials. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think they are. I think, Julia, in the end, they are, and I don't mean this with any arrogance whatsoever, but I came to this with over 20 years of experience in the field I specialised in, and I spent the best part of 8 years on this. And then I have a community and cultural background that also understands this. So there's layers and layers here. And we forced this. Collectively, we forced this. So thank you very, very much. My apologies for the first link not working, but we got there in the end. I'm happy to be back. I'm pleased to be back. I had a lovely break with my daughter. She's back in school tomorrow. I spoke to her just earlier. She's not looking forward to it. And it's her last term in year 6, so I'm not looking forward to it either, because she'll wander off to grown-up school. If you are new to me, my name is Raja Miah, and this is a Recusant 9 broadcast. Take care. Bye.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.